and we hear from people that have pursued education or that are writing to us from a place of experience, saying, hey, every day what I do is I go to work and I help people understand these things. I help people learn to talk about these things, to process these things. And a lot of times people ask us, because I think our team over the last 2.5 years, we've responded to something like 80,000 messages that have come from 40 different countries. And we get things as intense as suicide notes, And I shared what a lot of the messages sound like. And people ask us, how do you do that? How does that not just crush you? How does your team kind of stay sane and stay healthy and keep going? And I think the reality is that we get to hear the flip side of it as well. And we get to hear from people who are sitting across from a counselor for the first time and beginning to talk to someone about these things and inviting someone into their questions, their struggle, their story. We hear from people who are entering treatment for the first time. And maybe people saying that in a really desperate moment they picked up a phone and called a suicide hotline. And so we literally get to hear these stories of lives changing, of people taking steps, people taking that first step towards getting help, towards things changing. And we've really learned that these are not American issues. We've learned that this is a conversation that's global. That these are global issues. I think obviously this started in America, and for most of our team, even for me, I hadn't really left America when this happened. And I think we have the tendency in this country to forget that other places exist, and that there's other people who live in those places, and that they actually matter as much as we do. And then the coolest thing started to happen after a couple of weeks. We started to see these messages from people in England, and people in Australia, and basically anywhere where there was MySpace and where people spoke English, or where these bands that we were connecting with had fans. We started to get these messages. And so like I said, now we realize that we've heard from people in 40 different countries, and just realized that these aren't American issues, these aren't white issues, these aren't Indo issues, but these are simply issues of humanity. These are issues that affect people all over the world, and not just young people, but these are issues that affect old people, white, black, rich, poor, that it doesn't matter. These are just problems of pain that affect people. I think, like I said, it's been such a privilege, I think, for us we feel like the first step towards getting help is the one that most people never take. And so we feel like we're in such a unique position to get to have conversations around that first step, around people considering taking that first step. And I think one thing I want to point out is that not everyone that we hear from, not every message that we get comes from someone saying, hey, I struggle with self-injury, hey, I'm thinking about suicide. Maybe not even everyone deals with depression, but we feel like the bigger picture, kind of the thing that I mentioned up front, is that I think everyone we hear from can relate to pain. That I think everyone in this room can relate to questions, and the questions that we live with, and the questions that hang in the house that we grew up in, or the house that we go home to. Questions that affect the people that we love, the people that we care about, the people that we do life with. And it's just been an amazing thing to just try to invite people into the freedom to be honest. To just say that I think it starts by knowing that it's okay to be honest about those things, about the places that we live. Because I think the reality is that everyone in this room, that we're all the same, that we're all united. We all have different stories, we come from different places. Some of us are going to go sleep a quarter mile from here, and some of us will drive 4 hours, and some of us will get on a plane and fly home. And yet the reality is I think we have a lot more in common than we realize. We love talking about treatment. We love talking about the solutions that exist in the face of these issues. And on our site, there's a part of our website. It's a find help section, and we have a facts section. And we love just pointing to wisdom, to experts and experience, and basically to places where people can find help in their own community, and really not pointing to ourselves as the final solution, but just really trying to encourage and empower people to pursue the help that's out there. And yet I think as much as we talk about those things like counseling, like treatment, like 1-800-SUICIDE, we've gotten really excited and kind of fallen in love with this word community. And we think maybe a really simple definition is just this idea that people need other people. That people need other people. That community is this idea that we weren't meant to do life alone. That for some reason we tend to feel ashamed, we tend to get quiet and shut down and withdraw. And yet the idea that we were actually created and meant to live life in relationships, that we were meant to live life in honest relationships with people who actually know us, with people that we invite into our questions and the real places that we live. And not just the hard stuff, not just the fractures and the stuff that hurts, but I think our dreams as well. That you deserve to have friends and people that you do life with that know why your favorite song is your favorite song and why you want to go to this place in the world so bad, and who you had a crush on last week and who you'll have a crush on next week. Like, we need people that we do life with, that we were meant to live that way. And maybe that something really magical happens when we begin to choose a life that way. We even think that maybe counseling is an extension of that. There's another example of pursuing honesty, of pursuing conversation, of just pursuing lives colliding. I think a lot of times people wonder, okay, well, is it treatment or is it community? And I think we really love presenting the idea of something like this, of something like a marriage that we all need community, that we all need other people, and that for some of us things are really difficult, really painful, really intense, and that it's okay, that it's appropriate, it's right, it's even hopeful and powerful to say that there's real solutions that are out there. And I think it was really great that Eliza kind of kicked this off by saying, hey, there's solutions that exist on this campus, that if you go to school here, and I didn't realize purple was a Taylor color, I just happened to notice, but if you go to school here, that they are interested in you as a whole person, that they're not just interested in you going to class and getting a grade and getting a piece of paper, but that there are people here, real people with real problems, and in the face of that, there's people that want to meet you in those places. I thought that was really great. I want to read a quote. This is a book called The Shack. Has anyone ever heard of this book? Are you going to raise the roof? You raise the roof right there. Okay. The Shack right now is a cool Christian book, and I tend not to jump on the cool Christian book bandwagon. And I'm also super ADD, and so I didn't finish The Shack. But I want to tell you that page 11 is really good. So I'm going to read something that's on page 11. If you get to page 111 and you find it's good, then email me. But this is really good. And this, I think, is just a really beautiful illustration of community. To set it up, the guy who wrote the book, his name is William P. Young. I would think when he meets someone for coffee, he doesn't use the P, he's William Young. But tonight, he's William P. Young. And he basically took 10 years to write the book. He would say that he wrote it for his kids. So he has a wife and he has 3 kids. And I guess in his life, there was a sense that something really painful had happened. And this book is kind of based loosely on that. And there's a sense that God is inviting him into the most broken part of his life, to this place in his life that he's never come to terms with, this wound that he still carries. And so basically that's kind of, the book is about that, and that kind of hopefully sets up what I'm going to read. Mac is the husband, Man is the wife. It says, Mac has been married to Nan for just more than 33 mostly happy years. He says she saved his life and paid a high price to do it. For some reason beyond understanding, she seems to love him now more than ever, even though I get the sense that he hurt her something fierce in the early years. I suppose that since most of our hurts come through relationships, so will our healing. And I know that grace rarely makes sense to those looking in from the outside. Let me read it again. I suppose that since most of our hurts come through relationships, so will our healing. And I know that grace rarely makes sense for those looking in from the outside. I think that's real. I think when I think about the places that have hurt the most in my life and the things that I still carry today, that those things have come oftentimes in relationship, because you don't live life in a room by yourself, but you put yourself out there and you say, I'm going to know this person, I'm going to trust this person, I'm going to fall in love with this person, and that out of that things do go south, that we live in a world that's fallen, that's broken. And so I think there's so much truth in that, and just in the idea that, man, isn't it surprising that pain tends to happen because we bump into other people? And what a surprising thing that maybe God would use other people for our healing as well, that God would use relationships in the same way. And I think I haven't talked much about faith, and I think it's something in creating an organization and maybe just in life in general that we realized we were going to have to choose our battles. And I think the one we wanted to put at the top of the list was just trying to create something that met people where they were.